We at Andrews Partnership see a lot of transformation in the communications industry. We are constantly being asked by candidates what skills they need to be refreshing to keep on top of the rapid developments in an industry that is so dynamic. Today we're talking to Dr. Laura McHale, who after more than 15 years spent successfully in corporate communications roles, she retrained as a psychologist and now spends her time advising senior executives to help organizations increase performance, reduce stress, burnout, and boost engagement. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you so much.
So, what made you retrain in psychology?
There were really a few different factors. I really enjoyed my career in corporate communications, specifically focusing on internal communications. But I sensed that I wanted to do kind of deeper work and something that was a little bit more meaningful. I was fascinated by how internal communications was trying to impact employee behavior and the alignment with the strategy of the company. But I sensed that there was sort of a bigger area that I was a part of or wanted to be a part of. I also worked primarily in the financial services industry, and there's not a lot of people over about the age of 55. And as my midlife is coming up upon me, I decided that I wanted to retrain into a field that I could potentially do for much longer.
Interesting, yeah, interesting. What have you found particularly are the most transferable skills?
I think, the more that I studied organizational psychology and leadership psychology, the more I realized that I'd actually been doing a lot of behavioral science without knowing it.
Right.
Especially in internal comms. For example, designing surveys, doing quantitative and qualitative research. I didn't realize when I was coding people's, written in comments on employee surveys, that's actually qualitative research. So a lot of those skills are very directly transferable. I think that approaching organizations through a psychological lens causes you to look a little bit more at the role of anxiety in organizational life, which was something that I didn't really address when I was doing internal comms. It was always there. You sense that employees were anxious when they had communications needs, information needs, but recognizing now as a psychologist the very powerful role that anxiety plays in the organizational experience, I think I have a bit more appreciation for that. I also focused in my doctoral program, I focused on the neuroscience of leadership, and now I have a much better understanding of a lot of the neurological basis for stress triggers. Organization development practitioners have studied stress in the workplace for a very long time. We know some of the most common triggers are things like overwork, things like role ambiguity and role conflict, but being able to apply, a psychological lens to that with the understanding of corporate communications and maybe how to communicate around those issues, I think is a more powerful combination.
Is there any advice that you can offer others in the industry or outside the industry who are either making a nuanced shift or quite a dramatic one?
I have a few pieces of advice, and one of them is, I think, especially for people that are internal communications practitioners, I think that there tends to be, not insularity, that's the wrong word because it sounds like we're cutting ourselves off from the rest of the organization, but I don't think that internal comms practitioners necessarily understand how they fit into the larger organizational puzzle. And I would encourage them really to look at themselves as OD, as organization development practitioners. And that is not just the home of HR and change management, but it's also the home of strategy, it's the home of operations. There's a lot of different aspects of organizational life, and I think that internal comms people, by opening themselves up to this idea of being OD practitioners, kind of internal behavioral scientists, they have access to a lot more educational resources. My second piece of advice is, a lot of people have asked me about getting a doctorate, especially in midlife. It is a huge commitment. It can be massively disruptive on one's career. It can be massively disruptive for one's partner and families. Psychologists in training or anybody in a helping profession, such as coaching, will oftentimes go through a pretty dramatic personal transformation as a result of their training. That can be very hard on family members. The person who entered the doctoral program is not the same person that comes out.
Right.
And but if you love the subject matter, if you love being in school, tool, if you love learning, I can't recommend it enough. It's absolutely changed my life and made such a huge difference in my overall career and my overall outlook.
Thank you, Laura, for joining us. That was very interesting. Follow Andrew's partnership on LinkedIn for further insights later on in the year.